The Price of Time, a story that will change how you value every minute of your life. Have you ever wondered how much 1 hour of your life is worth? Not the hour you get paid for at work, but an hour of your own, irreplaceable time on this earth. An hour you could spend with loved ones, doing what you love, or simply enjoying the beauty of the world around you. Most of us never truly think about this. We spend time as if we have an endless supply. We postpone important decisions. We waste hours mindlessly scrolling through social media. We endure jobs we hate and toxic relationships for years, putting off real life for some mythical later. But what if I told you that a New York businessman learned the true price of time in the most unexpected and dramatic way? And that this knowledge completely transformed not only his own life, but the lives of hundreds of others? Today, I want to share with you the remarkable story of Michael Foster, a man who only realized the value of time when he was on the verge of losing it all. This story will make you reflect on how you live each day. And maybe, just maybe, today you'll make a decision that will change your life forever. The man who never stopped. Michael Foster was always a man of action. Born into a modest family in the suburbs of Chicago, he learned early on that if you want to achieve something, you have to work harder than everyone else. His father, a simple mechanic, often said, "Mikey, the rich get richer while the poor are sleeping." Michael took these words as his life's motto. In school, he wasn't just a straight-A student. He played on the football team, led the student council, and worked weekends. In college, on a scholarship, he juggled 2 majors and 3 part-time jobs. His classmates joked that Foster had invented the 25-hour day. How else could he do it all? By 30, Michael was a rising star on Wall Street. His workday started at 5 a.m. and rarely ended before midnight. He prided himself on getting by with 4 hours of sleep and still performing at his peak. Time is money, Michael liked to say, and he truly converted every minute of his life into dollars. By 35, he had founded his own investment firm, Foster Capital, which quickly became one of the fastest growing in the market. You might think such success would bring Michael happiness and fulfillment. But the truth was, he simply didn't know how to stop. As soon as he reached one goal, he set another, even more ambitious one. His first marriage ended after 3 years. His wife was tired of Michael always being on the phone or laptop, even on rare weekends. "You're married to your job, not to me," she said before leaving. Michael genuinely didn't understand the problem. Wasn't he providing her with a luxurious life? Wasn't he working for their future? His second marriage lasted a bit longer, 5 years. During that time, Michael had a daughter, Emma. But even that relationship couldn't withstand his schedule. Michael missed Emma's first steps, her first words, most of her birthdays. He always promised himself he'd make it up later, once he'd built a solid enough foundation for their future. And the saddest part? Michael truly believed he was doing the right thing. That he was sacrificing his time now for a better future. That one day, when he reached a certain financial height, he'd finally be able to enjoy life, spend time with loved ones, travel, pursue hobbies. But that moment never came. Each new success only fueled his appetite for more. Every achievement became just a stepping stone to the next goal. By 45, Michael Foster was a multimillionaire with an impeccable reputation in business circles. His company managed over $2 billion in assets. He had a luxury apartment in Manhattan overlooking Central Park, a country house in the Hamptons, a collection of sports cars, and a private jet. And yet, he was utterly alone. His daughter, now 15, barely spoke to him, preferring to spend time with her stepfather. Michael's parents had died a few years earlier, and he blamed himself for not spending more time with them in their final years. He had no real friends, only business partners and competitors. But Michael kept running. He convinced himself it was all temporary, that just a little more and he'd reach the point where he could slow down and finally start living. Do you see yourself in this story? Maybe you're not a Wall Street millionaire, but don't you also put your life on hold? Don't you tell yourself, once I finish this project, get that promotion, pay off the loan, then I'll really start living. But what if that moment never comes? What if, chasing the future, we miss the only thing we truly have, the present? The call that changed everything. It was an ordinary Tuesday, no different from hundreds of others in Michael Foster's life. He spent the morning in meetings with investors, had lunch at his desk with the phone pressed to his ear, and was now reviewing analyst reports, preparing for an important deal the next day. It was 4:30 p.m. when his personal phone rang. Michael frowned. Few people called that number, and it usually wasn't good news. The screen showed his ex-wife's name, Carol. "Michael, you need to come to Memorial Hospital." Immediately, Carol's voice sounded strange, as if she was barely holding back her emotions. "What happened?" "I have an important meeting in an hour," he replied automatically, still scanning numbers on his computer screen. "It's Emma." Carol's voice broke. "They found a brain tumor. The doctors say it's critical. They want to talk to both of us." Michael's world stopped. For the first time in years, the numbers on the screen lost all meaning. The meeting that had seemed so vital a minute ago suddenly became utterly insignificant. "I'm on my way," was all he could say, already jumping from his chair. The drive to the hospital felt endless, even though his driver seemed to break every traffic law. Michael's mind raced. How could this happen? Why didn't he know? When was the last time he saw his daughter? 2 months ago? 3? In the hospital corridor, Carol met him, drawn, her eyes red from crying. Her current husband, David, stood nearby, looking just as shaken. "Where is she? What do the doctors say?" Michael bombarded his ex-wife with questions, but she just shook her head. "The doctor will be here soon. Emma's in intensive care. They're preparing her for emergency surgery." A few minutes later, Dr. Ramirez approached, a middle-aged man with tired but attentive eyes. "Mr. Foster, I'm glad you could come so quickly. The situation is very serious. Your daughter has glioblastoma, an aggressive form of brain tumor. It's likely been developing for months, but symptoms only appeared recently." "Months?" Michael repeated, stunned. "But how? Why didn't anyone notice sooner?" Dr. Ramirez glanced at Carol, who quietly said, "She's been complaining of headaches for the past couple of months. We saw a doctor, but he said it was probably migraines from hormonal changes. He prescribed painkillers." Her voice trembled. "This morning she lost consciousness at school." Michael felt the ground slip from under his feet. His daughter had been suffering for months, and he hadn't even known. He hadn't called, hadn't checked in, too busy with his millions and deals. "What are her chances?" he asked the doctor, trying to sound firm, like in a business negotiation. Dr. Ramirez didn't sugarcoat it. "The tumor is in a difficult location. The surgery is risky but necessary. Without it," he paused, "Emma would have only a few weeks, maybe a month. With surgery, we can hope for more, but I must be honest. The prognosis is still serious. Glioblastoma is one of the most aggressive cancers. Money is no object," Michael said automatically. "The best specialists, experimental treatments, whatever it takes." "Mr. Foster," the doctor said gently, "in this case, it's not about money. We'll do everything we can, but I want you to be prepared for all possible outcomes." These words hit Michael harder than any financial crash. For the first time in his life, he faced a problem that couldn't be solved with money, connections, or hard work. "Can I see her?" he asked, his voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Yes, but only briefly. We'll begin prepping her for surgery in 20 minutes. The intensive care unit greeted Michael with cold light and the monotone beeping of medical equipment. On the hospital bed lay his daughter, pale, hooked up to tubes and monitors. She looked so small and fragile that Michael's breath caught. He approached carefully and took her hand. Emma slowly opened her eyes. "Dad," her voice was barely audible. "You came." In those 2 words, Michael heard surprise, and it broke his heart. His own daughter was surprised he found time to come to the hospital. Of course I came, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Emma gave a faint smile. My head hurts, and I'm a little scared. It'll be okay, Michael said with a confidence he didn't feel. You have the best doctors. And I'm not going anywhere, I promise. Emma looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing whether to believe this promise. Really? What about your work? You always say you're very busy. Those simple words hit Michael harder than any reproach. In his daughter's eyes, he saw not resentment, but a simple statement of fact. Dad is always busy. That was his defining characteristic in his own child's eyes. Nothing is more important than you, he said, and for the first time in years, these words weren't an empty promise. I'll stay here as long as it takes. At that moment, a nurse entered. We need to prepare the patient for surgery. You'll have to wait in the waiting room. Michael reluctantly let go of his daughter's hand. I'll be right here. I promise. When the operating room doors closed, Michael Foster, the man who always controlled everything, felt utterly helpless. For the first time in years, there was nothing he could do but wait and hope. He sat in a chair in the waiting room and buried his face in his hands. Memories flashed before his eyes. Emma's first steps, he wasn't there. Her first day of school, he missed it for an important conference. Her school concert, he watched a recording because he was on a business trip. How many moments had he missed? How much time had he lost forever? And for what? At that moment, Michael realized a simple truth. Time is the only truly irreplaceable resource. Money can be earned and lost, and then earned again. Reputation can be restored. Even health, to some extent, can be regained. But lost time never comes back. And now, with his daughter's life hanging by a thread, all his achievements, all his millions seemed utterly meaningless. What would you feel in Michael's place? Think for a moment. How many important moments in your loved ones' lives have you missed because of urgent business? How many times have you postponed meetings with parents, friends, children because you were too busy? We often don't realize the value of time until we're on the verge of losing it. But does it have to be that way? Do we have to wait for tragedy to understand what really matters? A long night and an unexpected revelation. Emma's surgery lasted over 8 hours. For Michael, it was the longest night of his life. He didn't leave his phone, constantly checking for news from the surgeons. Carol and David sat nearby, lost in their own thoughts. Around 3 a.m, Dr. Ramirez approached them. His tired face gave nothing away. The surgery went as well as could be expected under the circumstances, he said. We removed most of the tumor, but unfortunately not all. Some parts are too close to vital brain centers. What does that mean? Michael asked, his heart pounding. It means we've bought some time, the doctor replied. But the fight isn't over. Emma will need chemotherapy and possibly radiation. How much time do we have? Carol asked quietly. Dr. Ramirez paused, choosing his words. With aggressive treatment, maybe a year, maybe more. But I must be honest, a complete cure for glioblastoma is rare. A year, just 1 year. Michael felt the ground slip away again. His daughter was only 15, and the doctors were saying she might have just a year to live. No, he said firmly. There must be something else. Experimental treatments, clinical trials, anything. There are some experimental protocols, the doctor said cautiously. But they're in early stages and there are no guarantees. I want to know about every possible option, Michael interrupted. Cost is not an issue. The doctor nodded. I'll prepare the information. But right now, Emma is in recovery and needs rest. You can see her in the morning. When the doctor left, Michael felt he couldn't sit still any longer. He excused himself and wandered the hospital corridors, needing to think. He found himself in a small chapel. Michael wasn't a religious man. He'd never had time for impractical things like faith. But now he felt the need to enter. The chapel was empty, just a few candles flickering in the dimness. Michael sat on a bench and, for the first time in years, allowed himself to simply sit in silence. No phone, no computer, no endless stream of information and tasks. And in that silence, he realized he'd spent his whole life chasing success, thinking it would bring happiness to him and his loved ones. But in the end, he'd lost everything that truly mattered: his relationship with his daughter, his parents, the ability to enjoy life's simple joys. And now, with doctors saying his daughter might have only a year left, he understood that nothing is more precious than time spent with loved ones. At that moment, an elderly man in hospital pajamas entered the chapel, moving slowly with a walker. Seeing Michael, he stopped. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude." "No, it's fine," Michael said quickly, standing up. "I was just leaving." "Bad news?" the old man asked, lowering himself onto the bench. Michael nodded, seeing no point in hiding it. "My daughter has brain cancer. The doctors say," he couldn't finish. The old man nodded knowingly. "I know the feeling. I've been here 3 months. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. "I'm so sorry," Michael said sincerely. "No need," the old man smiled. "You know what's amazing? I've never been as happy as I am these last few months." Michael looked at him in disbelief. "Happy? With stage 4 cancer?" "Exactly," the old man nodded. "My name's Joseph, by the way. Joseph Clark." "Michael Foster," Michael replied automatically. "You see, Michael, most of my life I was like you, always running, chasing success, money. I was chief engineer at a big construction company. Worked 80 hours a week, built skyscrapers in a dozen cities. Then the doctor told me I had a few months left." Joseph paused, gazing into the distance. "And you know what I did? I made a list of everything I regretted not doing, and I started crossing things off. I made up with my son, whom I hadn't spoken to in 15 years. I went to the Grand Canyon. I'd always wanted to see it, but kept putting it off for retirement. I learned to play guitar, imagine, at 72. He chuckled softly. "And every day I wake up thinking, what can I do today to make this day worth living?" Michael listened, breathless. In the words of this dying man, there was more life than in all his own frantic pursuit of success. "But how? How did you come to terms with having so little time?" Michael asked. Joseph looked at him thoughtfully. "Who says you have a lot? You could die tomorrow in a car crash, or live to 100. It's not about how much time you have, Michael. It's about how you live it. Every day, every hour, every minute." These simple words struck Michael to his core. All his life, he put off real living, thinking he had endless time ahead. And here was a man, knowing his days were numbered, who had learned to cherish every moment. "You know what I realized, Michael?" Joseph continued. "Time is the only real currency in this world. Not money, not power, not fame. Only time. And we spend it so carelessly, as if we have an endless supply." Michael felt a lump in his throat. "I've missed so much. So many years chasing what seemed important, but really." "Hey," Joseph interrupted gently. "It's never too late to start living for real. Even if you or your daughter have little time left, that time is still yours. And only you decide how to spend it." At that moment, Michael made a decision that would change not only his life, but the lives of many others. He decided that no matter how much time Emma had left, a year, 5 years, or, by some miracle, a whole lifetime, he would do everything to make every day count. And not just for Emma, but for everyone who, like him, was wasting their life chasing illusions. Think for a moment. How much time do you spend on things that don't really matter? How many moments do you miss, putting life off for later? What would you do if you found out you had only a year left? Time as the greatest gift. The next few days, Michael didn't leave the hospital. He canceled all meetings, handed over company management to his deputy, and, for the first time in years, focused entirely on something unrelated to business: his daughter. Emma recovered slowly from surgery. The first days, she was weak and slept most of the time. But Michael was there when she woke up, reading to her, telling stories from his childhood, just holding her hand. Carol and David also spent a lot of time at the hospital, and gradually, warmer relations developed between them and Michael. For the first time in years, they weren't ex-spouses dividing responsibilities, but simply parents united by love for their daughter. A week after surgery, when Emma could sit up and talk a little, Michael decided it was time for a serious conversation. He knew Emma suspected the seriousness of her condition. She was a smart girl and saw the worried faces of the doctors. "Emma," he began, sitting by her bed, "I want to talk to you about the future." She looked at him with her big brown eyes, so much like her mother's. "You mean about the fact that I might die?" Her directness caught Michael off guard. He expected tears, fear, but not this calm acceptance. Yes, partly," he admitted, "but more about how we'll spend the time we have. Whether it's months, years, or, I really hope, decades." Emma smiled faintly. "You finally found time for me, huh?" There was no reproach in her words, but they still hurt Michael deeply. "Yes, and I'm so sorry it took this for me to realize how much I missed." He took her hand. "But I want to make it right. I want to get to know you, Emma. To know what you love, what you dream about, what you're afraid of. And I want you to know me not as the busy businessman who shows up at holidays with expensive gifts, but as a father, as a person." Emma looked at him for a long time, as if weighing the sincerity of his words. "You know what I dreamed of all these years? That you'd just be there. Not with gifts, not with promises to go somewhere, someday, but just here. That you'd see my school projects, listen to my stories, know my friends' names." Michael felt tears welling up. "I know, and I can't get back the lost time, but I can promise that from now on, I'll be here. Every day, every minute you need me, even if I don't have much time left?" Emma asked quietly. "Especially then," Michael said firmly. "But I'm not giving up without a fight. We'll find the best specialists, try every possible treatment. And if nothing works," Michael took a deep breath, "then we'll make every day we have special. I want you to make a list of everything you want to do, see, experience. And we'll cross things off one by one." Emma's eyes lit up. "Really? Anything?" "Within reason," Michael smiled. "I'm not sure the doctors will approve of skydiving in your condition." Emma laughed for the first time since the surgery, and the sound was more beautiful to Michael than any symphony. "Okay, no extreme sports. But I've always wanted to see the Northern Lights, and Venice, and learn to play the piano. Anne, write it all down," Michael said. "We'll start as soon as the doctors let you leave the hospital." That evening, Michael met with Dr. Ramirez to discuss Emma's further treatment. The doctor presented several options, including standard chemotherapy and experimental treatment in a Boston clinical trial. "There's a promising study in Boston," the doctor said. "They're using a combination of immunotherapy and targeted drugs. The results are preliminary but encouraging. The problem is, it's hard to get into the program, too many applicants and strict selection criteria. I'll use all my connections to get Emma into that program," Michael said resolutely. "There's one more thing," Dr. Ramirez added. "Quality of life during treatment. Chemotherapy is tough, especially for a teenager. Emma won't be able to go to school. There will be dietary and activity restrictions." Michael thought for a moment. What would you do if it were your child? Dr. Ramirez took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Honestly, I'd try to make every day meaningful, so that, despite the illness and treatment, life doesn't stop. So there are joys, experiences, moments of happiness." These words echoed what Joseph had said in the chapel and what Michael had already decided for himself. "Thank you for your honesty," he said. "That's exactly what we'll do." Over the next few weeks, Michael's life changed completely. For the first time in years, his priority was not increasing capital, but his daughter's well-being and the quality of their time together. He rented a spacious apartment near the hospital so Emma could live comfortably during treatment. He hired the best private tutors so she wouldn't fall behind in school. He organized virtual meetings with her friends when she was too unwell to go out. But most importantly, he was there. Every day, every procedure, every moment of weakness, and every small victory. He held her hand during chemo, read to her when nausea kept her awake, watched her favorite movies, played board games. And gradually, he got to know his daughter, not the little girl he remembered, but the real Emma, smart, strong, with an unexpected sense of humor and remarkable wisdom for her age. He learned she loved classic literature and dreamed of being a writer, that she adored old black and white movies and Italian food, that she was afraid of spiders but could watch snakes in a terrarium for hours, that she wrote poetry, piercing, profound poems about life, death, and everything in between. And the more he got to know her, the more it hurt to realize how much he'd missed. But along with the pain grew his determination, not to miss a single minute of the time they had left. Emma's wish list grew. Some items were simple. Try sushi, learn to skateboard, watch all Hitchcock's movies. Others took more effort. See the Eiffel Tower, swim with dolphins, attend a concert of her favorite band. Michael did everything he could to fulfill every wish her condition allowed. Between rounds of chemo, when she felt better, they traveled, first to nearby places, then, with the doctor's permission, farther. They watched the sunrise at the Grand Canyon, rode a gondola in Venice, watched whales off the coast of Alaska. Each trip required careful planning, consultations with doctors, special arrangements. But seeing Emma's eyes light up when she saw something she'd long dreamed of made it all worth it. One day, sitting on a beach in Malibu watching the sunset, Emma suddenly said, "You know, Dad, sometimes I think this illness is the best thing that ever happened to me." Michael looked at her in disbelief. "How can you say that?" Emma gazed thoughtfully at the ocean. "Because without it, I wouldn't have had all this. All these trips, experiences, you. I'd still see you once a month at awkward lunches where you're always checking your watch and answering calls." Those words were like a punch to the gut. Michael knew she was right, and it hurt even more. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I was such an idiot." "No," she shook her head. "You were just like everyone else. You thought you had endless time ahead, that you'd always have a chance to catch up. Most people live that way." There was a wisdom in her words that amazed Michael. How could his 15-year-old daughter understand what he'd only realized at 45? "You're amazing, you know that," he said, hugging her. Emma smiled. "I take after you." That evening, back in their hotel room after Emma had fallen asleep, Michael sat on the balcony, looking at the ocean and reflecting on her words, on how most people spend their lives thinking they have forever. And then he had an idea that would eventually change not only his life, but the lives of thousands of others. Think, what would change in your life if you truly understood the value of time? If you treated each day as a precious, irreplaceable resource? If you stopped postponing happiness for later? The Time to Live Project. 6 months after the surgery, Emma's condition stabilized. The tumor hadn't disappeared completely, but it had stopped growing. The combination of standard therapy and experimental treatment in Boston was yielding results beyond the most optimistic forecasts. The doctors remained cautious, but for the first time, they spoke of the possibility of long-term remission. It wasn't a cure, but it gave hope for years, not months. During those 6 months, Michael completely rethought his life and priorities. He was still the owner of Foster Capital, but he handed over day-to-day management to a team of professionals, keeping only strategic decisions for himself. He spent most of his time with Emma and on a new project, the idea for which was born that evening in Malibu. The project was called Time to Live, and its mission was simple: to help people realize the value of time before they face its inevitable loss. It started as a small blog where Michael shared his story and thoughts about time, priorities, and what really matters in life. To his surprise, the blog quickly gained popularity, His honest, sometimes painful confessions resonated with thousands of people who, like him, had been living in a constant race for success, putting off real life for later. Soon, Michael began receiving letters from readers, touching stories about how his words made them reconsider their priorities, reconnect with loved ones, find time for what truly matters. One letter especially moved him. A woman named Sarah wrote that after reading his blog, she decided to take a vacation to visit her father, whom she hadn't spoken to in years because of an old grudge. "I arrived just in time," she wrote. "A week later, he had a stroke. If not for your words about the value of time, I wouldn't have had the chance to make peace with him, to tell him how much I love him, no matter what." That letter was a turning point. Michael realized that his personal experience and insights could help not just him and Emma, but many others. He decided to expand the project. Using his connections and resources, he organized a series of seminars and workshops where people could rethink their relationship with time, learn to set priorities, and find balance between work and personal life. But the most important part of the project was the Second Chance program for people with serious, often incurable illnesses and their families. The program helped them create and fulfill wish lists, organize trips, meet idols, make dreams come true, everything Michael had done for Emma. He invested a significant part of his fortune in the project and attracted other wealthy people, many of whom, like him, had been so absorbed in business that they missed what was most important in life. Emma actively participated in the project despite ongoing treatment. She led a support group for teenagers with cancer, wrote for the blog, helped organize events. Her wisdom, optimism, and ability to find joy even in the hardest circumstances inspired not only her peers, but adults as well. One day, after another project event, Emma said, "You know what's amazing? We're helping healthy people learn what illness taught us." Michael thought about her words. Yes, it's a paradox. Most people live as if they have forever, and only when faced with limited time do they start to value every moment. But isn't that the point of our project? Emma smiled. To help people understand the value of time before they face its loss. "You're right, as always," Michael smiled. "Sometimes I think you're wiser than me, even though you're only 16. Almost 17, Emma corrected him. "And yes, I'm definitely wiser. But you're learning fast, for your age." They both laughed, and in that moment, Michael realized that, despite everything, he was happy. Truly happy, perhaps for the first time in many years. The Time to Live project continued to grow. A year after its founding, the organization had offices in 10 U.S. cities, then in other countries. Thousands of people went through its programs, rethought their priorities, and found time for what truly matters. Michael often gave lectures, interviews, and shared his story. He spoke about how the pursuit of success almost cost him what mattered most, his relationship with his daughter, the chance to be there for her in the most important moments of her life. He spoke about how Emma's illness was a harsh but necessary lesson, about how he learned to value every moment, every smile, every conversation. And people listened. They listened and changed their lives. One day, after one of his lectures, a man about his age approached Michael, expensive suit, tired eyes, the tense face of someone carrying too much. "Mr. Foster," he began, "I'm the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. I have 3 kids, and I can't remember the last time I spent a weekend with them without my phone and laptop. My wife says I live on autopilot. And you know what? She's right. I listen to you today and saw myself in you, myself before this happened to you. And I don't want to wait for a tragedy to realize what really matters." Michael looked at him carefully. "So, what are you going to do?" The man sighed. "I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. How do you change everything when you're in so deep? When hundreds of employees and millions of dollars depend on you?" Michael smiled. "You know, I asked myself the same questions. And I realized one simple thing. No one on their deathbed ever wishes they'd spent more time at the office. People regret missed moments with loved ones, unsaid words of love, unfulfilled dreams. He handed him a business card. Call me tomorrow. I'll help you find balance. It's possible, believe me. I'm not saying you have to quit everything and move to a cabin in the woods, but you can find a way to be professionally successful and not miss what's most important in life. The man gratefully took the card. Thank you. I'll call. I promise. There were hundreds of such stories. People who, like Michael once, lived in a constant race for success, not noticing how the most precious thing, time, was slipping through their fingers. The Time to Live project gave them tools to rethink priorities, find balance, and learn to value every moment of life. And what about Emma? Her condition remained stable. There were periods of decline when the tumor became active and required new treatment. There were periods of remission when she could live almost a normal life, go to school, see friends, travel. The doctors still didn't give long-term forecasts, but with each year, hope grew that Emma could live a long, full life. On her 18th birthday, a day the doctors originally said she'd never see Michael through a grand party, he rented a yacht, invited all her friends, and arranged fireworks over the ocean. When the guests had left, Michael and Emma stayed on deck, looking at the stars. "Thank you, Dad," she said quietly, "for everything, for being there all these years, for helping me live every day as if it were my last." Michael hugged his daughter. "I should be thanking you, Emma. You taught me the most important lesson in life, to value time. And not just me, thousands of people have changed their lives for the better because of you and our project." Emma looked thoughtfully at the stars. "You know what I've realized over the years? It's not about how much time you have, a year, 10 years, or a whole lifetime. It's about how you live it, every day, every hour, every minute." Michael smiled, recognizing the words Joseph had once said to him in the hospital chapel. "You're right. Time is the only real currency in this world. And the greatest gift we can give each other is our time and attention." They sat in silence, watching the stars, and Michael thought about how amazing, unpredictable, and beautiful a person's journey can be. How tragedy can become the beginning of something meaningful and important. How pain can transform into wisdom and strength. And that no matter how much time each of us is given, we can always choose how to live it. Every day, every hour, every minute. Time, the only real currency. 5 years have passed since the day Michael Foster received the call that changed his life. 5 years that, according to the doctor's original prognosis, his daughter was never supposed to live. A lot has happened in those years. Emma graduated from high school and went to college to study literature and psychology. Her health remained stable. The tumor never disappeared completely, but it didn't progress, allowing her to live almost a normal life with periodic maintenance therapy. The Time to Live project grew into an international organization with offices in 25 countries. Thousands of people went through its programs, rethought their priorities, found balance between work and personal life, and learned to value every moment. Michael remained the face of the project, but increasingly handed over operational tasks to a team of professionals so he could spend more time with Emma and other loved ones. Yes, others, over the years, new relationships appeared in his life. Carol introduced him to Jennifer, a psychologist who worked with children with cancer. Gradually, their professional relationship grew into something more, and now they lived together, planning a wedding. On this day, exactly 5 years after that fateful call, Michael was speaking at a TED conference with a talk titled Time, the Only Real Currency. He stood on stage before a 1,000-strong audience and spoke from the heart. 5 years ago, I was a successful businessman by conventional standards. I had a company managing billions of dollars, luxury real estate, a private jet. I had everything except the most important thing, time for those I loved. He paused, looking at the audience, where Emma sat in the front row, a beautiful, confident young woman, so different from the frightened girl in the hospital bed. It took my daughter's terrifying diagnosis for me to realize a simple truth. Time is the only truly irreplaceable resource. Money can be earned and lost, and then earned again. Reputation can be restored. Even health, to some extent, can be regained. But lost time never comes back. He told the story of his awakening, the story of the Time to Live project, the stories of people whose lives changed thanks to a new understanding of the value of time. We live in an era where busyness has become a status symbol. "I'm so busy" is the new "I'm doing great." We pride ourselves on working 80-hour weeks, sleeping 4 hours a night, always being connected. We think we're investing in the future, ours, our children's, our loved ones. Michael shook his head. But the truth is, by putting life off for later, we risk never truly living. Because later may never come. Or it may come too late, when too much has been missed. He looked out at the audience, meeting their eyes. "I'm not telling you to quit your job and move to a deserted island. I'm asking you to recognize the value of time and start investing it consciously. Ask yourself, if you found out you had 1 year left, how would you live it? Who would you spend time with? What words would you say to your loved ones? What dreams would you fulfill?" He paused, letting the audience reflect. "Now ask yourself, why aren't you doing that now? Why are you putting off what really matters?" The hall was silent. Michael saw many listeners quietly wiping away tears. Time is the only real currency in this world. And the greatest gift we can give each other is our time and attention. Don't put life off for later. Start valuing every moment now. When he finished, the hall erupted in applause. People stood, clapping. But Michael looked only at Emma, who smiled at him through tears. After the talk, dozens of people approached him, thanking him, sharing their stories, promising to change their lives. But the most important conversation happened that evening when he and Emma sat in a quiet restaurant overlooking the ocean. "You know, Dad," she said, gazing at the waves, "sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gotten sick. If everything had gone as planned." Michael looked at her carefully. "And what do you think?" Emma smiled. "I think everything happened as it should. My illness was a terrible thing, but it led to so many good changes. You changed. I changed. Thousands of people changed their lives because of our project." She paused. "You know what a boy in my support group told me? He said, I'd rather live 1 year of real, full life than 100 years on autopilot. And I understand what he meant." Michael nodded. "Me too. And you know what? I'm grateful for every day we have. Everyone, even the hardest." Emma reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Me too, Dad. Me too." In that moment, Michael realized that, despite all the trials, fears, and uncertainty, he was happy. Truly happy. Because he'd learned to value what matters most, time spent with those you love. And that was the lesson he wanted to share with the world. The moral of the story. Dear reader, the story of Michael and Emma Foster is not just about fighting illness or building a successful project. It's a story about the most valuable resource each of us has, time. We often live as if we have forever. We postpone important conversations, meetings with loved ones, the pursuit of dreams for some mythical later. We spend hours, days, years on things that ultimately don't matter, missing what truly does. And often, realization comes too late, when time is already lost forever. But does it have to be that way? Do we have to wait for tragedy to start valuing every moment of life? Imagine you found out you had only a year left. How would you live it? Who would you spend time with? What words would you say to your loved ones? What dreams would you fulfill? Now ask yourself, why aren't you doing that now? Time is the only real currency in this world. And the greatest gift we can give each other is our time and attention. Don't put life off for later. Start valuing every moment now. Because, in the end, life is not measured by the amount of money earned, career heights reached, or material possessions accumulated. It's measured by moments of genuine connection with others, moments of joy, love, laughter, moments when you are truly present in your life, not just existing on autopilot. No matter how much time each of us is given, we can always choose how to live it. Every day, every hour, every minute. And that may be the most important choice we ever make. So, what will you choose?